The saints inspire us, they help us on our spiritual journey, and they have incredible stories that we can take inspiration from. Up next, we'll be talking with Alex D of the Saints Alive podcast that my family loves, and your family probably has heard of it too and enjoyed it. So up next, we'll be talking with the creator of the Saints Alive podcast, Alex D.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on another episode of The Catholic Gentleman. We are so blessed and excited that you have decided to join us today. We are looking forward to diving into acting, into screenwriting and storytelling and all of these great things with Alex D. But before we get there, if this is your first time, please hit that subscribe button wherever you're at. If you're on YouTube, hit that bell button. Feel free to watch our mugs, visually, not just listen to us. You can see how goofy we are. And again, just so thankful for you being here. If you're interested in donating or looking for a place, we launched Catholic Gentleman Plus, which is our membership program, which has more systematic guides, more content, more exclusive just for men at CatholicGentlemanPlus.com. You can head over there. We've got a tiered subscriptions, both monthly or annually. All of it goes to support the Catholic Gentleman and the work that we are doing here. So I want to introduce a friend of mine, somebody that I've known for 15, 16, 17 years, somewhere around there. I have to really dig back. And somebody who's come through a long journey, one that I look forward to talking about. But that's Alex D. He is a husband, father, and as he says, a Swiss Army knife when it comes to storytelling. He is the co-founder, director, and narrator of the Saints Alive show, podcast. We'll talk about that. After 5 years of working as an actor in Hollywood, and this is very interesting, he decided to give that up and move forward with a new life that God was calling him to there in Vermont with his wife, and to continue telling stories, but for the edification and upbringing of children and for our own souls, I might add. So he is on a mission to inspire the next generation of saints, that's you and I, and he loves being able to share great stories and move hearts to Christ. When he's not busy directing and working on Saints Alive, he's also chasing around two amazing kids, and he's a wannabe CrossFit athlete. And I'm glad that you mentioned that last part there, Alex, because I remember when I first met you that you were working out every day, and it was inspiring. So how are you doing today, though, Alex?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be on the Catholic Gentleman podcast. I've been a huge fan of the Catholic Gentleman for years. I mean, I can't even count the years either. I feel like I've just always known about the Catholic Gentleman. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to be here. And yeah, still working out almost every day.
Well, and I
Keeps
think
me
for
sane.
Amen, right? And I think for our listeners, it's important. So the best man in my wedding is Alex's brother-in-law. So he married his beautiful sister, Alex's sister, obviously, not my best man's sister. Clarification needed there. So, but Alex and I, we said hello. He was, into politics, and he was working out a lot, and he was still in high school, I think. And so, we obviously didn't connect for a number of years, but then he started moving forward with this Saints Alive, and we've been able to reconnect over the last couple of years, and it's been really exciting. So, Alex, why don't you tell people a little bit about your beginning? And you went into college and you didn't know you wanted to be an actor, but then you decided to pursue that career, right? I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. I started in college. My major was poli-sci, political science. And I thought I wanted to go down that route, had a natural interest in it, had, pretty good grades in it. And I had a little bit of a quarter life crisis thinking about the work that I'd be going into. I just saw, I was like, okay, this is what this is going to entail. It's a lot of desk work and just kind of grinding out, doing really difficult work that I was not passionate about. And I was passionate about changing the culture. But I knew that the way to do that was going to be through people's hearts. Obviously, the law is a part of that as well, to change the culture. But I felt really moved to change the heart piece first. So had a quarter life crisis, took a semester off. And I really had always, if you asked me when I was a kid what I wanted to be when I grew up, I just always said actor. And I loved movies. Like I would watch movies over and over and over again because we didn't have TV, like cable. So we had movies. And so I like dissected movies. Like I memorized them. I don't know, like I just loved watching the same movie over and over again. Maybe that was, I don't know, maybe that was a warning sign for me or something, but I loved my movies. So I was like, the only reason why I'm not pursuing this is because I'm scared and because I think it's impractical. But what if I just trusted and went for it? Because I really knew that I wanted to tell stories that moved hearts to Christ. I'm a cradle Catholic. I've always been on fire with my faith. My parents did a really good job of raising me in the faith. Like they just naturally gifted it to us without forcing it down our throats. And so I've always been inspired by my faith. And I've always wanted to tell stories that could do that for people. And like, growing up on Lord of the Rings and, learning about Tolkien and, his faith and how it was infused into the story just really inspired me. So I went back to school and I just took an acting class and I had a natural knack for it. I ended up getting like a little mini scholarship from my school to pursue a summer of study in New York that year. And I just kept doing it. I didn't major in theater ever, but I took all the classes you could take and I ended up getting a degree in psychology because I thought that was more, I don't know, still like my practical side coming in. Is like, I can use psychology for acting, but it's also like a different degree than acting. So people would look at me and not, laugh. But so yeah, I ended up going down that route and left school, pursued acting in Buffalo, New York to pursue my further study, moved down to New York City, got managers, did that whole agent thing, and then flew out to LA in 2015 for pilot season and got
Real
my
quick,
butt kicked.
I want to hear that, but I want to go back. Why Buffalo for the ignorant, right? Why was Buffalo on an area? Because if you asked me acting, that would not be on my list of cities.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I went to school near Buffalo. I went to school at a state school called SUNY Geneseo. No one knows where it is ever, but it's a small school near Buffalo. And so after I graduated, I just moved to the closest city, and that was Buffalo.
Okay.
And then, so moved to Buffalo, did some acting there, moved down to New York City, the big one, and then got management, moved out to LA for pilot season. And got my butt kicked out of me. But I ended up having to come back after that first pilot season back home, kind of setting myself because I was like, that was really crazy. I got completely destroyed out in LA by the, just people who are much better than me. I really had to pray if this is what I wanted to do, but also more importantly, if this is what I was being called to do. Because I had always wondered that. It's like, is this like a selfish thing in me, to want to be an actor? Because I think every actor at some level, you have to have a desire. You're drawn towards fame in one way or another, and you have to check that and see, okay, what is this going to be channeled towards? Is this going to be channeled towards myself, or am I going to be doing this for the greater glory of God? And so that's what I really did when I came back from being kind of kicked down that first time going to LA. I was like, okay, why am I doing this? Because if this is just for me, this isn't worth it. Like, this is really hard. This is not fun. I mean, I love acting, I love film, but like, getting those jobs, it's brutal. So I was like, you know what? Let me pray about this. And I did a lot of prayer, and I've not been able to kick this out of me. And I've like prayed to God, like, can you just take this desire away? Like, if this isn't what you want me to do, then I don't want to do it, because it's really brutal. It's really hard. There's never, I don't know, there's never a feeling of like stability. so if you don't want me to do this, then I don't want to do it. And I just prayed that kind of like prayer of abandonment, and he just didn't take it away. And he just kept inspiring me, like, like, no, you can do this. So went back out, actually focused on, the things that needed to be met, like, food, house, shelter, faith, community, getting those things met, and then going into the business. And that was like definitely the better thing. And then just being like, I'm going to get cast in a movie tomorrow, So then I went back out, and I pursued it for 5 years in LA. Yeah. Had some very small roles. You would not know who I was by the roles I got, but ended up, getting the small roles and learning a boatload. But I quickly discovered that I wasn't going to be able to. I didn't go out there naive. Like, I knew the industry was stacked against me, and that I wanted to be telling stories worth telling. Like, that's kind of my motto that I've like settled on my journey, is that like, I want to be a part of stories worth telling. I will not do junk. I will not do garbage. I have no interest in wasting my time or talent on things that are just filler or distractions. So I quickly learned that those were few and far between for someone entering the industry that didn't have famous family members. It's going to be difficult. So I decided that I was going to have to learn everything I could about filmmaking and storytelling, and be a part of like what I've kind of told myself as like this resistance storyteller of getting things made that deserve to be made, that I believe deserve and need to be made to move hearts to Christ. And so that's what I did. I ended up getting to work with a Catholic film company called Family Theater Productions, and working on a really great documentary about this amazing priest called Pray, the Story of Patrick Peyton. Met a lot of great people there, made some great connections. And then, lo and behold, COVID hit. But more importantly, before that, I met my amazing wife and fell in love. And we had a honeymoon baby. And so we kind of got this, our first big marital fight was like, time to leave LA. And I was like, wait a second, I need at least one more year. And she's like, we're having a baby, we're moving back home. And I was like, right. So got to figure this one out. Being an actor, a filmmaker, not living in LA, trying to pursue this still. And then COVID hit, and then I was just like, okay, yeah, we got to leave. So left LA. And so that's kind of like the big kind of tee up before Saints Alive starts, because leaving LA was really it was the tipping point of forcing me to believe that God could use me to make something, and I didn't need to be in LA to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where Saints Alive was really born.
Well, and I think it's really beautiful how you just kind of talked about turning to God and following his will. And I do believe very much that God's will is revealed in the process, and that he needed you to go through that experience to break you in a way to bring you to where you are now. And there's always that benefit, like in the immediate moment, maybe he didn't remove that desire and that was placed on your heart, or remove, whether it was mixed and muddled, if you will, between selfish desires and virtuous desires, as they so often are. He was allowing you to go through that to make you better and make you and hopefully prepare you to what you're able to come out with now. So I appreciate you sharing that journey.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a long-winded story.
No, it's good though.
But yeah.
It's amazing though, and like John's saying, like nothing's wasted, when you follow God's will. And I think Hollywood, cinemas are not just films, but with all the streaming content now and stuff like that, it can be really powerful storytelling. Unfortunately, it's often used for unholy purposes, but what drew you specifically to audio drama, if you will, like to this podcast format? Because while podcasts are exploding right now, like the drama format, used to be really big way back in the day, 30s and 40s, and and like it was really big, but you're reviving it almost, like you've almost gone back to this format that a lot of people would have said isn't very effective, and yet you've drawn thousands of people to listen. Like I said, our family loves it, so it's like there's something there. But like, what sparked that idea to kind of set aside the visuals for a minute and just go with the audio and see what you could do in that medium?
Yeah, it's a good question. And honestly, like, there's multiple reasons for it, but so first, I guess, like, primarily, I love epic stories. I'm a like that's if I wanted to make a movie, it would be like Lord of the Rings. So that's the type of thing that I want to tell, and I know that, like, the stories of the saints are amazing. They're epic stories. And so my mom, actually, I got to give her credit here. She was like, Alex, like, why don't you just make, movies about saints? Like, they're awesome. Like, you'd have it's a never ending, kind of library to go through. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but they're going to be so expensive to make. And to do well, there's been a few saint films that have done well and many that just have not. And I think that it comes down to you have to have a really strong budget to do it well, and obviously a very strong faith that can capture that story. And that just has not matched up many times. And so I was like, well, I'd love to do that. I have the faith. I love telling these stories, but I don't have the budget. But my mother was like, well, why not do an audio drama? And that just really stuck in me, because I had just so my son was how old was he? He was 8 months at this time, around 8 months. And I was just realizing, like, the content that was being churned out, and that in a way that I've never been sensitive to before for children. That I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't. Like, what is it? What are we gonna? For my wife and I, like, what are we gonna show him that we can trust? Because there's so much out there that's just garbage, and so, like, I knew that there needed to be an alternative. And I knew that the stories of the saints could be amazing things for him to grow up with. Because if I grew up with, these, learning about these amazing men and women, I would have been like, so, like, I would have been like on fire, like really on fire. And so I knew I wanted him to have that. And I knew that the only way I could do it was to do an audio drama. Then so be it. And then, hopefully someday I can figure out how to make these into films. But that was where the idea was formed. Was actually, I got my mom telling me, like, well, why not do audio dramas? Because she grew up on radio dramas. And she was like, I really loved I loved these things growing up. And we did have TV at that time, but I still loved these things. And so, like, that also was like, okay, well, if they had TV and, like, if it's done well, storytelling's powerful, it'll work. And, like, I had started getting into some podcasts that were more storytelling by design. I think, like, Red Pilled America was something that was just starting to come out, and I loved their storytelling format that they had taken with that. Obviously, Saints Alive is much different than that, but I knew it could work. So I just started throwing myself at it.
Yeah. What have you learned in honing your skills, though, for audio versus visual, right? So you were prepared primarily for that visual representation of a character in movies. And what have you learned were maybe some obstacles that you were unaware of when you started diving into that? Because listening to your stories, they do a great job. You tell stories within stories, which is great, so that you can connect with people today, bring them up to date with how our lived experiences and lives are and what we're tangibly dealing with, but then, bringing these beautiful and incredible saint stories to it. So what are some of the obstacles and hurdles that you've experienced and that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is just, I don't know, the one I didn't expect. Honestly, the way that I think part of the secrets to our success with Saints Alive is I do my best to not view them differently, which I know sounds kind of, impossible, but I really do my best when I'm putting these things together to actually see it. And because if you're like good movies generally, you don't always need to see everything, for a good movie to work. I think Alfred Hitchcock was really big with that. But, I really try not to use that divide. Obviously, there's things that you have to do. One of the, I think, most difficult things is like we can't rely on the audience to see the actor's, face, which is such a powerful weapon in storytelling. Is the human face. And so what we have to do is use music, and obviously our actors that we've got to work with are great. A lot of them are my family members, but we've also used we've used actors all over the world now, who have reached out to us, and through a voice. The voice is also very similar to a face when you can rely on it. And even I have learned that relying on the breath, like hearing people breathe, is also very important. And it's something I did not realize earlier on. And I think a lot of some other podcasts, like other audio drama type things, like they make it very crisp, and you don't hear any sort of imperfection, like a person inhaling can be viewed as an imperfection. But I actually like those imperfections, because it reads more like, oh, this is just a movie that the screen's gone, and so that's something that I have learned throughout the process, is to, I guess, those little things that can replace the human face are the most important.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm interested too in, like, you mentioned the success, like, how hard was it for you to get this off the ground? Like, it's you're doing really well now, but like, how long did it take to like really start to get some traction and like really start to introduce people to kind of this new format of engaging with the saint stories? I mean, there's all kinds of books and other ways of engaging with saint stories, but this audio drama version is like really unique. And so how long did it take?
Yeah, it's been a slog. It's been really hard, but we're very blessed. God, the only thing that's gotten us through this is prayer. We end every day in a rosary. I have to end every day in a rosary. It's very rare that I'll miss a daily rosary, but our Heavenly Mother has carried us through a lot of intercession. It's been really difficult. The first episode, Saint Nicholas. So the first episodes that we did, we purposefully targeted saints that everybody knows the names of them. It was Saint Nicholas, Saint Valentine, Saint Patrick, Saint Joan of Arc. We targeted those saints for a very specific reason. We knew that people knew their names, but that the stories had been kind of co-opted by pop culture and not fully understood anymore. But the first episode, Saint Nicholas, is a pretty simple story, but it took like 6 months to get that one episode done. Between writing the episode, and I had to learn. So I'm also the editor, and I had never edited an audio thing in my life. So I tried editing everything. Editors, this will only make sense to editors, but I edited that full episode on Premiere Pro, which is a video editor, not an audio editor, for people who don't know. And it was horrendous. The levels were everywhere. And so when we first got the first mix done, it was so bad. Like literally every second had a note of like, fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this. Like, it was just a mess. And so I had to go through and Premiere and do all of those things myself. And so that was horrible. Ended up scrapping Premiere after that, forcing myself to learn an actual audio editor. But besides that, like the process of building our team. So the founding team is myself, my wife, and my best friend Tanner. Tanner Clean is an amazing. He was a Focus missionary at the time. He's a Eucharistic Congress missionary now, and we have this Trinitarian team model where I'm really much like the epic kind of dramatic guy. Tanner's really funny and quirky and gets that in there. And then Melissa's really super emotional. And so we get all these things together, but it took a long time to build this team element that we weren't all at each other's throats all the time. And working with your wife on a project can be a huge learning curve. That's a whole separate podcast. But we learned a lot. So it was really hard, but I would say that after St. Nicholas was released, we had a huge what we thought at the time for us was a huge response, because we had no marketing, zero marketing. No one knew about us. And yet somehow like it was being played and it was being shared and it was just organically spreading. And we had done nothing. We had just, a one landing page website and, 2 posts on Instagram, but we had told people like, hey, we're doing this thing. This is our mission. We want to re-inspire the church with the stories of the saints to ignite it from the inside out. Will you help us do it and send this on? And, so people listened to the first episode and were like, oh my gosh, this is great. And it just went off from there. So like that part, like the ground game that was that people did naturally was amazing. And also I got to give credit to my wife, Melissa, because she literally like messaged like Catholic moms for months telling them like, hey, please listen to this. It's coming out. Please listen to this. And some of them were like, okay, like whatever. Like, I don't know who you are. But then like 10 months later, these same moms like messaged her back like, oh my gosh, I just found I ignored this message from you, but I listened to every one of your episodes.
When you said it was spreading organically, I'm like, it's the power of Catholic moms right there. It's like a viral network. Right? It is.
It is the Catholic mom thing. Like it just spreads, and so and Melissa's great she's really big on building relationships with people, and she did a great job with that.
No, I think that's exciting.
That's fantastic. Well, I think it's incredible, and I love those stories of just like pouring in the blood, sweat, and tears, and having no idea what's going to happen. Like it's an act of faith, right? And what you find is like when you take a step of faith like that and make some sacrifices, like God always meets you there and pours out grace, and it's like it's beautiful to witness. And so where are you now, and like where do you feel like you're headed from here?
Yeah, so we super thankful. We won the Our Sunday Visitor Innovation Challenge, the OSV Innovation Challenge this year for the creative track, which was another grueling process. That was a grueling process. Thank you. Yeah, we're super thankful to have gone through that program. OSV did a great job, and we learned so much from their team and all the people they brought together for that. So now what we're doing is like we're really focusing on really making this continue and go forward and tell as many stories as possible. And we have a lot of other ideas. I can't go too into depth right now, but we want to make sure we continue to build out this world of the saints and really paint this beautiful interconnected web of the saints, because there's so many that like affected each other, like and it's really cool to think about that, like the communion of saints, it's a communion, and so many of them inspire the other and the other and the other, and some of them are friends. So we're really focusing on building out that world as much as possible. And we're launching some speaking engagements that will go to schools and kind of use the episodes in like these interactive ways to get the kids to think about sainthood like in the here and now, and not just as like these people on stained glass windows. That's our biggest thing. But then like what we also, want to do is really build out like storytelling for the church. I think that in a lot of ways, the theology of the church is like so beautiful and it's so powerful once it hits your heart. And I think if we can figure out how to interweave that within story, it'll really help the church get its message out into the world and to actually make impact. So like that's really what we have tried to do with Saints Alive, and there's other ideas that we have in store to do that as well. So we have some Lenten series coming up that we're really excited to get to work on, and I'm really excited. Some other projects too that I can't go into too many details with, but that is what we want to do. We really want to reignite storytelling for the church to really hit people's hearts, not just to tell a great story. Like that's honestly like the bare minimum that we can do. But how do we do it in a way that's going to move hearts to Christ?
Yeah, amen. And what you're saying is just resonating with Benedict XVI's Via Pulchritudinis, right? The way of beauty is what's going to bring people to Christ these days. They and our agnostic, atheistic, individualistic society, they need that moving experience to open them up to truth, right? And academic, while necessary, and I'm not trying to downplay the importance of studying theology and reading the scripture and doing that daily for those of us who are pursuing, just telling somebody to read the Bible every day, good luck with that, right? But having something that hits them with beauty and opens them up to it. And I'll say you're doing a great job. Ignatius of Loyola, your episode on that just talked about that communion of saints, right? And how he was transformed by the lives of the saints. And whoever did that accent did a good job. Whoever was your
that was Kaiser Johnson. He's a great voice actor, great actor, friend from Los Angeles, good Catholic guy. He's helped out multiple times. He was Padre Pio, he was St. Thomas More, and he's also St. Ignatius. He's a great voice actor.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take a step back and talk about acting, right? You talked about the love of theology. I do believe the church has not done a great job on the catechesis of acting and the catechesis of TV and things of that nature, right? So you get exorcists that come out and say, we shouldn't watch horror movies because that which we entertain is that which we allow into our lives, and even avenues or ways in. And I mean, I completely agree with that, but why do we have to go to the exorcist to find some sort of catechesis on acting and on entertainment and what we're watching? And so I'd like you to talk briefly about your own personal experience. And, I know that you probably were having to deal with that as like, okay, what am I willing to portray on camera versus what I'm not? Where is my line crossed? And where does the church guide me in that line? I don't know if you had any helpful guidance when you were trying to look through that stuff, but I'd love for you to share with a little bit about what you learned along the way, and honestly, even some ground rules outside of, don't watch horror movies, but like, for men, you don't watch movies with softcore porn or pornography on it, things like that, that are occasions for sin. But I'd love to hear from you from the other side, right? Not just from the visual viewing, but the person acting. I'd love to hear what you experienced there.
Yeah, that's a big question. And I don't have all the answers, but I can give some things here, because I think you're right. There is a very clear lack of catechesis here. And I wish it weren't so. But so when I was first going out to LA, again, like I was like, okay, I'm not going to do, the obvious ones. Like I'm not going to do a sex scene, obviously, and I'm not going to do any nudity, I'm not going to go do that. But there are like, there's these varying lines that you have to figure out. And at the time, my like rule was like, okay, well, if my parents can't watch it, then I don't want to be in it,
Yeah, sure, right.
which is like kind of, if that's the only rule you have, it's a kind of solid one, But now my rule would be, if my wife can't watch it, I can't do it. And I had a recent project that came up. I wasn't going to get it, but like, I was like, I can't do that. Like it was for a conservative project, but like they were making a pretty gruesome point, and I was like, I can't be that guy to do that for my wife. Like it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But I think, there's definite lines that you can't cross. And as I reflected, I've definitely made some mistakes. So looking back now, I didn't do a sex scene per se, but like, there was a sensual scene that I did once. I'm looking back now, I was like, was that really necessary? Like that was me, painting over. I didn't cross the line, but I got darn close to it. And I think a lot of actors, we fall into this trap of we really feel pushed to do things. And if you look at like so many like A-list actors that talk about their experiences on set doing sex scenes, all of them, except for the weird ones, are like, I felt used. I don't enjoy this. This is so uncomfortable. Like this is not, so many of them just talk about how they feel used on set. And that's for a reason, because you are being used, but you feel pushed into this because like, if you say no, someone else will say yes, and then you'll never go forward in your career. And so like once I started to realize that like I didn't want to play that game, that's what really pushed me into like, okay, then I'm gonna have to make my own projects. And like that's what I would say that like, as actors, like kind of the first step to like changing that culture is you have to then take kind of the reins of the industry in your own hands and be like, okay, then I got to figure out how to do my own stuff then, and figure out how to start other projects, because I don't want to do those things. But I think the other thing is that like as far as like a catechesis thing here, I'm struggling to kind of figure out a clear way of doing it besides those two simple rules. If your parents can't watch it, if your wife couldn't watch it, don't do it. But I did have a good priest. I had an amazing priest that I was able to call. And I think that like every actor needs to have a priest you can call.
Yeah.
That's actually trustworthy. That can be like, hey, I don't know, like this is a questionable project and here's why. And I had a moment when I was back home and I was trying to get back out to LA, and there's this job that popped up that was like going to pay me well enough to like kind of pay for the trip out. And then I had to figure out how to get, housing, everything like that. But I had at least have that figured out. But it was for this really dark show. And I had done like another series on this network, but it wasn't as dark as this one. And it was like, this one was really dark. And I had called my priest, and I was like going through this role. And when you're talking to a priest, you kind of have like a knack of just like explaining it and to yourself. And he was like, Alex, I think you know what you need to do. And I was like, yeah, I think I do. I can't do it. He's like, don't think you can, So like that's, when you have a relationship like that with a great spiritual director or a priest, like that'll naturally come out. But today I think like the lines are pretty clear, because the industry has gone so far into, it's not soft porn. It's porn, it's porn. It's not just like, oh, that's edgy. It's like, no, that's demonic. Yeah. Like that's the type of stuff that we're dealing with now. And so, I would just say to, a lot of actors, like, trust your gut on stuff. And if you feel like you're being, if you feel like you're just saying yes to something because you feel like you have to, like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lie.
Exactly. Something that you're saying just triggered in my mind. I had read or heard in the past that, producers and filmmakers are no longer, awakening their audience to truth and to life, but they are just, violating them with what they're showing. And I would say that, with you having to entertain the thought of falling into, or of representing mortal sin, right? As an actor, you want to do things to the best of your ability, right? And so that's a tough line to kind of figure out. And I would say that, yeah, if you're having to act into mortal sin or something like that, maybe.
And I think like there's like, so this is where like, okay, like to put some nuance here.
Yeah.
Like, so, but this is where the industry is just completely failing. Like, what's the point of the story? Is the story to show the, like this person turning their life around and like completely surrendering their life of sin? Or is it to actually uplift that? Like that's where much of the industry actually is. It's like, it's not about showing a path of like repentance, it's not about that. It's about actually glorifying sin. And like, that's the difference, because I think that there's stories that can and should be told about people who have done, sinful things, reprehensible things, that turn their lives around, that offer it back to God. And like those stories can and should be and need to be told, but they are not, they're not told for the vast majority of the projects today.
I think it's a good distinction.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think it's not about portraying sin in order to portray redemption. It's just about reveling in sin and like just being as gratuitous as possible. And one thing I'll say is like it's very like Hollywood is such a mess right now, like morally speaking, and probably has been for a long time, truth be told. But like just it's very easy to focus on just the darkness of Hollywood and the sin and the corruption and stuff. And yeah, as we see, like there's movies that can be incredibly powerful. I mean, Lord of the Rings is the original trilogy is incredibly powerful, and portrays virtue and goodness and holiness and like all of these, and just in a very riveting way. And then there's also obviously like the Passion of the Christ and like the Sound of Freedom movie that's like really touching a lot of hearts, and like so good can come out of it. And so I'd love to hear, just being someone on the inside a little bit, like what are the possibilities for this medium? Like if something is done well, what is the power of cinema, and like what is the power of good acting, even like to touch hearts, and it doesn't, and like, so what's the light side of the film industry? I guess that it's not all darkness or you wouldn't be in it.
Yeah. I mean, like the power of like a good movie it can be life-changing. It can be something that can save a person's life. I mean, I think of like, I can't watch It's a Wonderful Life without like crying every year, and I'm obviously not suicidal, but like there's something there's something so powerful in that movie that just captures my heart every time I watch it, about fatherhood and being a man and just sacrifice. And so it's like there's this magic in film that lets us, be taken away into a story. And the same thing with Lord of the Rings. When I was a kid, like, gosh, watching those movies was just like, I was on the adventure, and it was just so, so beautiful. So there is hope when it's done well, and that's, I guess, like why I'm here is because I feel very called to fight for that, because that is the power of film. It's like it can really move hearts, and because it's a concentrated form of, all the different storytelling, crafts that we have, of music, acting, picture painting, like it's everything together, dance. And so like that, it's super important that we as Catholics, as Christians, we say we're not going to let it go. We're not going to just we're not just going to retreat and say, all film is bad because Hollywood is bad. That's not true. Like Hollywood is corrupt right now. And yes, it's never like Hollywood has been corrupt for years. Like it's not at all been, I think we can look back at the golden age of Hollywood and be like, oh, it was perfect. Everyone was nice and saintly. And like, no, it was not. But we were living in a different culture at the time that was actually propagating stories that supported that culture. And so like, that's the difference right now is that we're living in a post-Christian culture, and Hollywood is just feeding out that, as much as it can. So I think like we have to have hope, and we have to fight for film. Yeah. We have to. And there are good people in Hollywood. As you said, like The Sound of Freedom, great movie. Everyone should go see it if they haven't seen it yet. Go support it. And finding movies like that we can support is super important because it actually influences the industry. Hollywood listens to the box office as much as it will try to not listen to the box office. It's forced to. Yeah. And so that's super important that people realize that, like, okay, if we want to change, if film is important, which it is, if we know that Hollywood is beating out garbage, which it is, we need to change that. And that means we need to support the good movies that are being made and go see them. Because those numbers do matter, and they will help support the change in the industry in the long run.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for you saying that. So for our listeners, I want to hear a couple things from you, Alex, as where they can go, obviously, to digest Saints Alive and see it or listen to it. And then what's one of your favorite episodes, or an episode that they should start with now that you have had created so many with tens of thousands of listeners? Thanks be to God. I will also just put a plug in here. I love listening to them. Me personally, I love listening to them with my kids, but every single episode I learned something, actually, not just reminded, definitely a lot of reminding of different saints, but I learned something as well, every single one of those stories. And so I'm really grateful for you for that. But where would you direct our listeners to get more of what you're doing?
Yeah. So, and thanks, John, for saying that about liking to listen to it. And I will just say that we need more Catholic dad champions. We have the Catholic mom champions. We need the Catholic dad champions and the Catholic gentleman champions. Because actually, we got a really funny comment the other day from a dad on Instagram. He was like, it was about St. Ignatius Part 2. He was like, I'm so excited for St. Ignatius Part 2. I'm not even going to listen to it with my kids. Okay. But we have a lot of adult and parent fans as well. And that's on purpose. Like we really try and do that, make it enjoyable for parents and kids alike. But as far as listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, basically wherever you get your podcasts will be there. We also have a website, saintsalivepodcast.com. All of our episodes are there. You can find more information about us and the lineup and our store. We have all of our art prints from all of our episodes from our amazing artist team that creates the stuff for the episodes. And as far as favorite episodes here that I recommend, I go back and forth so many times. St. Ignatius is one of my newer favorites right now. But some of my past favorites, I love St. Joseph. It's a 2-part series on him. And as far as bringing in, so that episode is super heavy on theology because obviously, St. Joseph doesn't say a word in the Bible. We don't have any words from him directly. So,
it's so good. I just want to add the strength that you provide to St. Joseph that he obviously had, that you bring into that audio drama is phenomenal. That's well done.
Thank you. So. Yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes. So I really recommend that one as like a first, just a taste of wow, what else can they do? St. Joseph is a great episode to start with. what was the other question here? Was that all the
Yeah,
stuff?
exactly. Where men should dive in, but Saint Joseph or Saint Ignatius, I mean, both of them great. If you love Saint Jose Maria Escriva, I know that we have a lot of quotes associated with him.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's also a good episode, because I think, like with Saint Jose Maria Escriva, for instance, so many people know his words, his Opus Dei, but they don't really know his struggles and sufferings in life from childhood. And so I think that those are great ways to become deeper connected. And that's the communion of saints that we're all called to be. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that.
Right. Well, awesome. Yeah, Saint Jose Maria also awesome saint.
Well, wonderful.
Well, just in conclusion, let's. I'll encourage everybody to check it out. It's worth your time. It's worth your attention. You know, we all have drives in the car with kids, or like those nights where the kids are a little bored or something and looking for something to do, and it's like, let's listen to a saint story, and the kids love it. Like, I really, really do. And it's like, I love those. Speaking of movies, like kids movies or like kids books, even sometimes, where it's like they throw in little things for the adults, like little like wink wink things that only adults will get. But it's like it just makes it so much more enjoyable but this is like another level. This is like just such good storytelling that the adults are just drawn into. And so we all enjoy a good story. So everybody check it out. You won't regret it. saintsalive.podcast.com or whatever podcast platform.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Like, this has been so great. And again, like, huge fan of the Catholic Gentleman. I remember like just going on the blog years ago. I don't know exactly when you started it, Sam, but I've known of the Catholic Gentleman for a very long time. It was like 2013. Okay. Yeah. So huge fan. So 10 years. Wow. You guys are 10-year anniversary. All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Be to God.
Yeah. That's so great. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Well, Alex, I'm so glad and excited we were able to do this finally. So I know we've been talking for a while, and it's been just such a blessing having you on and to talk through and kind of wrestle with some of these issues that I know we all have and we've all thought of, but maybe not spent a lot of time really reflecting on. So again, thank you so very much for all the work that you're doing, and you're just in our prayers.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, I'll definitely keep you guys in my prayers as well.
Last thing I'll say is just thank you for serving the church and the world in this way. Like, I think one of the things I believe with Catholic Gentlemen for the longest time is like, men need to serve. Like, that's kind of our highest calling, is in order to serve the church and to serve others. And you're doing that. You're answering that call both through your acting work, but also by producing this amazing content. So just thank you for answering that call to service and for making this contribution, because it is making an impact.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'll just say I can never take credit for doing this alone. Amazing wife, amazing co-founder, and lots of prayers from people. So yeah, please keep us in your prayers.
Amen. Well, as we end each of our episodes,
be a man, be a saint.